Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Hi everybody, welcome back to English Topics. My name is Alicia and today I am joined again by...
I'm Davey.
Welcome back, Davey.
Thank you.
So in this episode, we're going to be giving some reading recommendations. So these are a few ideas that you can use in your English reading. So the idea here is just kind of to remind people that although we focus a lot on speaking and listening on this channel, reading is also an essential part of learning a language. So these are a couple of ideas. If you're struggling to find something to read, or if you just want something new to read, maybe, you can try one of the things that we'll suggest today, I hope. All right. I guess I'll start because I chose one of my items is actually quite general. And this was something that I recommended in a different video recently too. Just to start things off quite broadly, I've written magazines specific to your hobbies. This could be books as well, or maybe like online magazines too. But this I chose because actually this is something that I did that helped me when I was studying, I am studying now, but this actually helped me too. Because this was something, in my case it was about music. I chose a magazine related to my hobby because I wanted to study the vocabulary words that were used for my hobby. And I was also interested in the subject to start with. 3, when I read the magazine, I would also find out about other things related to my hobbies that I might also want to know about, but it was in the language I was studying. So like a real example, I had a band that I really, really liked when I was in high school. I looked online because I could not buy the magazine. It was a magazine in Japanese. I looked online, bought the magazine online and got it sent to my house.
Wow.
And then I would sit with a dictionary and try to read the interview of like my favorite artists to understand what they were saying. And then I'd look through the magazine at some of the other things in the magazine, and it helped me actually get an idea of like the other similar things in that subculture that I might be interested in the language I was studying.
Right.
So this was very helpful for me in terms of vocabulary, in terms of learning about something I was interested in. So this is something I would recommend. And this is also something I think that's easy to do quickly, especially if there's like a blog or something you follow.
Yeah. That's a good tip too, I think, because you'll be motivated to read if that's your hobby. That's something you're interested in. You will be motivated to read that. You won't give up if it's difficult. You'll press on, you'll finish reading it. And also, if that's your hobby, you'll be picking up vocabulary that you will use. If you want to go talk with people about your hobby in English, you'll be picking up vocabulary related to your hobby when you're reading, and then you can use that.
Exactly. And I think you can do that. I've used Hobbies for this tip, but I think you could also do that for your profession as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that's just a kind of a broad, open tip. But I think you have some more specific ones.
I do. I took a little bit different approach from you. But my first one here is Harry Potter, the Harry Potter books. Because when the first Harry Potter book was written, it was written for children of a certain age. And when the next Harry Potter book was written, it was written for the same kids a year or two, when they were a year or two older. And so the Harry Potter books get longer and more complex and more difficult to read as you go through them. So it's nice to start with a nice simple book that was written for, a certain age. So it will be easier for you to read if you are a language learner, if you're an English learner. And as you get better, you can move through the books. And also this is a nice package of extended reading, having, how many Harry Potter books are there? 7? 7? I've never read Harry Potter actually. But
there are 7.
There's 7. There's 7 books.
There's 7 excellent stories.
That's all together. That's a lot of reading. And so you will improve your reading skills a lot by just reading a lot. Even if you don't understand everything you're reading, that's all right. Just press on. And maybe you've already read Harry Potter in your first language or in another language. Maybe you've seen the Harry Potter movies. Being familiar with the story and the characters and what's going on will help you fill in some of the gaps if you don't understand something when you're reading the books. And that way you don't have to focus on understanding every single word or every single sentence. You can just focus on enjoying what you're reading, and your reading skills will develop. you might not notice them developing, but they will develop as you press on and as you continue reading.
Yeah, I think your point about it being a known story, I think so many people around the world have read Harry Potter in their native language that they know what to expect.
Right.
I will say, however, because I tried the exact opposite. I ordered Harry Potter in Japanese
Really?
to try to read it. And so I would give just one word of precaution for fantasy stories. That is that there are a lot of nonsense words in fantasy stories and fantasy books. So like Harry Potter is fairly light.
Right.
It's like, but I mean, it is make-believe, and there are some words that just like muggle, for example, is a word that we cannot use in everyday English. So I think if you can keep that in mind, fantasy books are a great thing to read. They're so much fun. I love them. But they can be challenging, I think, to apply all of those words to your everyday life.
That's true.
Yeah, I think Harry Potter is so well known and so well loved. And you can talk to people about it too.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, you can watch the movies then in English as well. Like there's a lot of good stuff to do there.
That's true. And read with subtitles, actually. That's a nice tip for improving reading skills generally. We're talking about reading recommendations, but a nice tip is watching a movie with the subtitles on and trying to speed read the subtitles is a nice little boost as well.
Yeah.
You could do that after you read the book.
Yeah, so that's a great tool. Like you said, there's just the whole package. You have all that material
a lot
there
of content.
to use.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, sounds good. I will go on to my next one, which is slightly less vague, but I thought this might be useful for learners of all ages. There's this, are you familiar with Pearson English Readers?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are a lot of books for kids here, but there are also some materials as well as audio materials for adults. So what is an English reader, a Pearson English Reader? Pearson's the company that makes these, but they are graded stories. They are simplified stories or stories that are made to suit learners of different levels. So if you know your level or you have an idea of your level, actually, I think their website, you can do a short, like kind of level check sort of thing to sort of get an idea of the best level book for you. But based on your level, you can find books, you can find stories. Some of them are based, I think, on like movies as well, famous movies. But you can get these so that they're suited to your level. And then maybe you can also challenge yourself by getting books that are like the level above you when you're starting to feel confident. So these might be a good resource. They have kids books, I know. So like, you know, kids 3 to 5 can read storybooks in English, really simple ones. And then as kids get older, they have more for like, I don't know, like 9 to 11-year-old kids and so on. But based on your level, you can choose the book and the story that you feel would be best for you. So that might be a good resource to check out. So specifically created material for different levels.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an idea. So just for some examples, like I checked their website before we started talking about this. And for kids' stories, they had, you know, some common English language children's stories like Little Red Riding Hood or The Three Bears, or maybe children's adventure stories when children start to get a little older. A couple of the things I saw for adults, for example, the movie Love Actually, apparently there's like a reader plus some kind of audio as well to go along with that story. So there are some apparently famous like movies that have also been turned into reading material and listening material for people. So that's a resource that you can use as an educator, but also as a person learning English. So you can check out their website, I think.
Nice idea.
Might be something to check into. So anyway, what's your next recommendation?
So my next one is for more advanced readers, higher level English readers, and that is to read something by Ernest Hemingway, very famous Nobel Prize winning, I think he won the Nobel. Yes, he won the Nobel Prize in literature. Nobel Prize winning writer Ernest Hemingway, who was writing in the middle of the 20th century. He died in 1962 or something like that. And I recommend Hemingway because he famously has a very simple writing style. Even though he's a very well-regarded, well-respected American writer, he wrote in a very simple way. He used very, very simple syntax. So it's easy to understand his writing. Vocabulary might be difficult, but it's easy to read a short story of his or a shorter novel of his and get the idea, get the gist of the story. And he wrote he's famous for certain novels like The Old Man and the Sea, For Whom the Bell Tolls, but he also wrote a lot of short stories. And so that's a good place to start. You could buy a collection of his short stories or find some online. I'm sure you can find some of his, like the Nick Adams stories or other stories online to try reading for free. And that's a good place to start. And if you like what you read, then you can read more. So like I said, he wrote novels and he also wrote a lot of short stories. And I don't know if I have one specific favorite short story, but he has a series or a collection of his stories that are called the Nick Adams stories, because they all feature one character named Nick Adams. And the first Nick Adams story is when Nick Adams is a young boy. And he's 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years old. And we see Nick Adams kind of grow up through these stories. And a lot of these stories are also about fishing. Nick Adams growing up in Illinois, I think, which is also where Hemingway is from. And stories about Nick Adams kind of just going fishing. And I grew up in a fishing family, and so I really like those stories. And they're simple. They're easy to understand. They're just stories about a young guy going fishing. It might sound really boring, but they're very beautifully written. They're very nice stories. They're easy to understand.
I didn't read much Hemingway. I read some here and there in high school.
Sure.
But I think in my case, I was always more drawn towards like the fantasy and science fiction genre.
Sure.
And so that always held more appeal. But there were some authors, and I think from around the same time period as well, that gained notoriety for that style that you're describing. That was like simple situations and simple phrasing, but like an ability to like create these just kind of picturesque images. Like, who wrote Walden?
Walden was Thoreau.
Thoreau. I remember that. That's the one about the guy who just lives in the forest.
Well, it's a journal.
By himself.
Yeah.
But that's one that really stood out to me too. There was nothing necessarily complex about that story, like on the surface, but that was one that was like, it made you think about just like the pace of everyday life, and it wasn't so difficult to read. Like we were reading it in high school. So,
right.
There are a lot of writers, I think, that have something similar. I was also thinking when you were talking about Kerouac as well, Jack Kerouac, who did travel stories.
But they're stream of consciousness,
so,
a lot of them. Like On the Road is very stream of consciousness. Sentences that go on for a page.
I see. I was thinking in terms of material, in terms of topic.
Sure.
And in terms of like vocabulary use and so on. But that does make sense because they are kind of rambly.
Yes. Kerouac might be hard.
Though in general, that's perhaps like a high school reading list might not be bad.
Absolutely.
Well, I shouldn't say that actually. That's not true.
Depends what you're reading.
That's like Homer as well, like Iliad and
yeah,
Odyssey.
Stay away
also
from
on
the
that.
Iliad and Odyssey.
Not recommend
Stay
those.
away from Faulkner.
What else is that good?
That's,
Did you read?
Certain things are going to be hard. I like Faulkner, but that is not an easy author to read.
I'm trying to think of kind of like, in that same vein then, sort of those kind of adventure-ish stories. William Golding's Lord of the Flies. That one was kind of like, it's an exciting adventure story for sure. It gets dark as well too.
And there's a movie.
Oh, is there?
There is.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, those are some things that stood out to me from my high school list. But
Sure.
I don't know what people are reading in high school these days. I'm kind of curious.
Probably a lot of the same. There's a lot of things in the canon.
A lot of historical stuff too. I remember reading The Plague. I can't remember who wrote that.
That's
not cheery. Not cheery.
Camus.
That's right.
French.
Gosh, you're good at that. You're good at remembering authors. I am not.
I was a lit major.
But that makes sense. So yeah, that's a dark story about the plague, the Black Plague.
Yes, it is.
Happy times.
And murder. My man died today. Or maybe it was yesterday.
Oh man.
That's the first line.
I don't remember. I don't remember these things. Anyway, I'll go to something that came to me because I was thinking about adolescent level books, actually.
Sure.
Because I feel as a learner, second language learner, adolescent level books are nice because it's like they're not too hard and they're not too easy, and the subject matter often has a little bit of like drama to it. So anyway, I chose 2 things here actually. Nancy Drew and the
Babysitter's
Hardy
Club.
Boys.
Sorry.
No, I never read Babysitter's Club, actually. I was just never into that sort of thing. But I did read Nancy Drew. So I included both of these here. Basically, both of these, Nancy Drew is the story of a young girl. She's a detective. That's the story here. The Hardy Boys, they are 2 boys. Their last name is Hardy. I think they're brothers. Yeah, of course they're brothers, the Hardy Boys. They are detectives also. So these 2, it was like a detective series led by a girl and a detective series led by boys. And I thought these could be nice because these are books, these are huge. Like there's
so
a
many books.
lot of books in both of these series. And when I was thinking about the genre of a mystery story, I was thinking about the different types of grammar that get used in these stories, like stuff that you might not use so much in everyday conversations, like he would have been able to, or he might have been able to, or then we could maybe, like sort of these weird future possibility or past possibility sorts of things that can get discussed in these mystery stories, but they're made for like teenagers, essentially. But that doesn't mean that the stories aren't interesting. I remember really enjoying like Nancy Drew when I was a teenager. Did you ever read these?
I think I tried reading 1 or 2 Hardy Boys books when I was a kid, and I didn't really get into them.
I see.
But I did, similar to those kinds of books, I really liked an author called John Bellairs, who wrote similar kind of like mystery books for young readers, like The Mansion in the Mist, and these sort of weird kind of spooky Baroque kind of mystery books for children.
Okay.
That were really good. So John Bellairs, I recommend. He's a nice, good author too.
Did you read those choose your own adventure style books?
Oh, that's a great one. Those are really fun.
But the one thing that I would caution about with those books is those books are often written in second person, meaning the subject is
true.
you. You. Those are kind of a rare style of book in that respect.
That's true.
When it's what we're talking about is a choose your own adventure. I had the Goosebumps series when I was little.
Sure.
This is like scary stories. But when the book is a choose your own adventure book, it means you, the reader, are the focus of the story. And so as you read, you have to make decisions in the story. If you choose A, you turn to this page. If you choose B, you turn to a different page and you read what happens to you next. So you are choosing your story as the character in the story. So the way the story is written is different from typical stories. So the focus in the story is you go to the haunted house, you see a ghost. What do you do next? And that's not very typical of the way most stories are written.
They're very interactive and very fun and also very simple because you're reading just a few sentences per page and then making a decision. So they're easy to read.
They are. So as long as you can keep that in mind, it's called second person, the way those stories are written. But those are fun, for sure.
Absolutely.
I always got scared. I would hold like the different pages and like, if I died in the story, I'd be like, no, I go back and then I'd choose the one where I live and I escape the haunted house sort of thing. I didn't like to lose.
But that's another nice thing about those books is you will read them again and again because you want to discover the different possibilities. And so rereading something, it gets easier to read and it's good practice for you.
Yeah. So choose your own adventure books. Yeah. What was the series that you read of choose your own
adventure? I don't remember. I remember it was like an adventure series, sort of like Indiana. It wasn't Indiana Jones, but it was that style of adventures. Like you're a treasure hunter in the jungle, stuff like that. I remember reading ones like that.
I see. Yeah, I'm not sure what other ones there are. I only had Goosebumps.
I'm sure there's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, those are very good.
Nice.
Nice idea.
Okay. All right. What's your next one?
My last one is also maybe more for advanced or intermediate learners, and it's the New York Times. And now bear with me. I know you might be thinking, oh, that seems very difficult, but I recommend the New York Times for a few reasons. One, it's always nice to stay up on current events and reading about the news and current events in English, things that are happening now in English, you'll be able to then go talk about them in English. The second reason that I've recommended the New York Times is similar to your first recommendation. You can find something to read in the New York Times. If you don't want to read the news, read the travel section. Read the food section. There's different sections of the New York Times that you can read based on your interest. And the third reason I've chosen the New York Times is because the New York Times Online has a very cool feature. You can double click on any word that you don't understand and it will give you the definition. So for learners, it's very useful. So if you're worried about, understanding all the vocabulary in an article or improving your vocabulary, this is a very, very easy way to do it. You don't need to sit there with the dictionary open while you read. You just need to double click on the word. A little pop-up window will tell you the definition. You can close the window and keep reading. So it's very, very useful for vocabulary building.
That's cool. That's way cool. And as an extra bonus for extra advanced learners, you can try the New York Times crossword puzzle.
Ooh, yes, you can.
Crossword puzzles are great vocabulary practice, games. I guess it is essentially a game.
Yeah.
New York Times, though, it's infamously difficult. The New York Times.
They get harder through
puzzle.
the week.
It's like the Sunday crossword is the most difficult. Yeah.
I went through a phase a couple years doing the New York Times crossword puzzle every day. I wanted to get good at it.
Uh-huh.
And I could complete through Wednesday pretty easily. Thursday, maybe. Mm-hmm. I never really made it past Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Friday, I couldn't really do. Weekends were forget it.
So for reference, a crossword puzzle is a word game. So a crossword puzzle, it's like a grid of lines and columns, and there are empty boxes. And each line or each column, there's a word hint. There's a clue about which word fits in the boxes. So you have to choose and spell correctly the word. So you might need to erase the word, or you might need to try a few different words. But it's a test of your spelling, for one. Mm-hmm. It's a test of your vocabulary, too. And for more difficult crossword puzzles, it can be a test of your knowledge of other subjects. So it's not just words. It's also history and science and literature.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different things that go into the clues for crossword puzzles. So those are really, really good ways to test your knowledge. They're difficult even for native speakers.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Totally difficult. So if you want to try, definitely Google for some English crossword puzzles. You can search for easy ones also.
Yes, and they make crossword puzzles for English learners. And a lot of those are graded to a specific level, or they're on a specific topic. You could do a crossword puzzle on, the ocean and learn vocabulary related to the ocean, for example. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different crosswords that you could find, for your level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that could be a fun way to practice reading and to practice spelling as well. Mm-hmm. So fun stuff. All right, so those are a couple of different reading recommendations. There's quite a lot to choose from, but I think as long as you're interested in what you're reading, that's maybe the hardest part, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just find a thing you like.
Find something that's interesting, and you will stay motivated to read it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Are you reading anything now?
I am reading something now.
Uh-huh.
I am reading a book by David Mitchell,
mm-hmm.
who is a very wonderful author. Mm-hmm. Who is maybe most famous for Cloud Atlas. And they made into a movie.
I saw the movie.
And I'm reading what am I reading? Not Number 9 Dream. I bought 2 books of his recently. I bought Number 9 Dream and Black Swan Green. That's what it's called. Mm. Black Swan Green is the book I'm reading now by David Mitchell.
I see.
And it is a good book.
Cool. Yeah, I'm reading... I've gone back into history. I told you about this the other day. I'm reading Letters from a Stoic at the moment by Seneca, the old Stoic philosopher, for kind of just interesting essays and
just showing off
life advice. I'm not showing off. It's a common book. It's a very common book.
Yeah, I've got Seneca on my nightstand as well.
Well, I don't read the things that you read, so it's to show everybody has something different.
Find something you like, and read it.
Absolutely. That's the point here. Yeah. All right, so those are quite a few recommendations, some ideas. But if you liked the video, which we hope you did, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also, come and check us out at EnglishClass101.com. You can find some other reading resources on the website there, so don't forget to stop by. Thanks very much for watching this episode of English Topics, and we will see you again next time. Bye-bye.